Sports Talk with Greg Ballard. Man, awesome for you to join me here. NBA Southeast Division preview. And of course, if you're going to talk about the Southeast Division, you're going to start, of course, with the big three, the Miami Heat. For many have become the Miami Hate, of course. We know what a turn this organization took last year, becoming public enemy number one for a lot of you out there. But I think whether you love this team or hate this team, and it seems to be, one extreme or the other, you really love or you really hate. Either way, it's evident that the talent is there on this team, that they are going to, again, be able to compete in the Eastern Conference. Of course, we understand what the big three bring to the table. A very good player in Chris Bosh, a phenomenally good player in Dwayne Wade, and a phenomenally good player in LeBron James. Even those three, even the big three, are going to have to bring their games to new levels this year. And I think that there should be optimism in South Beach. Second year together with head coach Eric Spoelstra, I think that things can get even better. And when we talk about even better, remember, of course, this is the defending Eastern Conference champions. But when they put this Miami Heat team together, of course, the aspirations were not to be the beasts of the East, but in fact to start stacking NBA championships. So we'll watch that this year. Certainly some things that have to improve for Eric Spoelstra's club this year. The end of game execution certainly has to get better. The Miami Heat, one of the absolute worst teams in the NBA last year on games decided by 5 points or less. LeBron James really struggled shooting in those scenarios as well. These things will have to improve and get better. I like the addition of bringing in a Shane Battier, certainly a veteran, a calming presence, and a defensive presence that's going to fit right in there for this Miami Heat team, absolutely. Craig's key on this team is going to absolutely have to be a guy like Udonis Haslem, as we're going to take a look at this front court on the Miami Heat. Anytime Chris Bosh and Raptor fans will tell you, anytime he is your last line of defense, you're potentially in trouble, folks. So Udonis Haslem, he's a guy that missed a lot of last year, but the one guy on this roster that they bring in, Eddie Curry, I don't think Curry can get it done. I think it has to be Udonis Haslem providing the strength and the aggression on the interior of that defense, providing the presence on the interior of that defense for the Miami Heat. Another player that we'll look at here, can't quite say is Craig's key because it's very tough to give a rookie point guard that kind of a status, but Norris Cole is at least a player that we'll watch this year from the Miami Heat. The point guard scenario there, certainly, Mario Chalmers, Eddie House, I'm sure we're on the same page here. We're underwhelmed with the point guard spot for the Miami Heat. When Norris Cole, rookie, comes in here, and I think that he's going to get an opportunity for Spoelstra to play and to show that he can be part of this organization going forward. And we know, of course, the Miami Heat, the most interesting team. They're like the Dos Equis of the National Basketball Association. They're the most interesting team in the NBA. We'll be watching them very closely. Another Florida team in the NBA Southeast Division, a team that is going to be extremely interesting, an organization that's going to be extremely interesting to watch in the 2011-2012 NBA season, the Orlando Magic. And we know that the headlines are going to be made about what's going to happen with Dwight Howard, their star. If you've seen my previous work, you know how I feel about Dwight Howard. I feel that this is about to be his league. He's about to be that dominant, in my estimation, on offense and on defense, that he is about to run this league. So I'm very interested to see where he ends up going forward. The Magic, Otis Smith and company there in Orlando, have certainly tried to do their part to surround Dwight Howard with players that can win. If you listen to Dwight Howard, they haven't surrounded him with the players that he's wanted, and that's part of the friction, part of the reason he may want out there. If you go back to the last year, to the last trade deadline, to today, as the season is upon us, as the next season is upon us now in the NBA, you look at guys they've added, Jason Richardson, Hedo Turkoglu, Big Baby Glenn Davis, Larry Hughes, Von Wafer, Quentin Richardson. So a laundry list of names, veteran names. So really the Orlando Magic playing the poker version right now of all-in basketball, really trying to surround Dwight Howard with as many pieces to the puzzle as possible to start stacking wins and show Dwight Howard that in fact Orlando is the place for him. But we see with that list of veterans and this team, if it's not going to work out there and Dwight Howard is going to be moved, there is not a lot after Dwight Howard coming up for this organization, so it would have to be a major trade that would address that, and that's, of course, going to be very interesting to watch going forward. This Orlando team, I'm not predicting huge things. I actually like a couple other teams in this Southeast Division. I'm not predicting huge things from Orlando this year. Sports Talk with Greg Ballard, Southeast Division preview. And one of the teams that I am going to be watching in this division here, the Atlanta Hawks. And I know on the surface we're saying that this team lost Jamal Crawford, probably take a step backwards this season. I'm actually looking for things from this Hawks team. I thought it was a very interesting offseason. Yes, they do lose Jamal Crawford, absolutely. In the past, of course, Mike Bibby gone as well. Kirk Heinrich is injured, so it's a completely different looking backcourt for the Atlanta Hawks. But really, a Craig's key for this team is going to be Jeff Teague. And we really saw Jeff Teague last year at the end of the year really have a coming out party, really start to establish himself as a legitimate NBA point guard. If that's going to continue, then there's that scoring, there's that offense you lose with Jamal Crawford. Teague will provide that and perhaps then some. He's got that kind of potential. The offseason as well, you bring in veterans like Vlad Radmanovic, you have Jerry Stackhouse, Tracy McGrady, bring them in to go along with the Heinrich as well. Very interesting, a lot of veterans being added to this mix. Really, for this Hot Atlanta team, we're going to look at the Craig's key, doing two guys. We know that Marvin Williams is a guy who has to take his game to the next level. We've all been waiting, I think, for a few years now, maybe one or two at least, to see Marvin Williams take his game, take his very good game to the great level, to the next level. So we'll be watching him very closely. That has to happen. And then other Craig's key on this team has to be Al Horford, and has to be the way that they're going to utilize him going forward. Even if they re-up with Jamal Crawford, folks, I'd be looking at these two players as two that have to take their game to the next level this year. Al Horford has a wonderful mid-range game. He's a wonderful weapon and option on offense. Has to be used even more for this team going forward. I'm actually going to be watching this Hot Atlanta Hawks team. I believe I am in the minority here. That's the feedback I'm getting. I feel like I am in the minority here, but I'm actually excited about this Hot Atlanta Hawks team. Next, we'll head out to the nation's capital, take a look at the Washington Wizards. A very interesting group here for Flip Saunders. Very young group, but I think an up-and-coming group here. And we'll take a look at the most recent additions here in the draft. They bring in a Jan Veasley, they bring in a Chris Singleton and a Shelvin Mack. So, geez, pretty impressive draft. A lot of upside there, a lot of potential for the Wizards from this last year. And of course, going forward for this team, a absolute Craig's key is going to be this backcourt. Man, all kinds of talent, all kinds of studs in the making. Jordan Crawford came over last year and really showed that he's has an opportunity to be a legitimate guard going forward for this Wizard team. We know John Wall. I mean, wow, sky's the limit for this kid. Special rookie, or special talent, I should say, going forward. He is. These last couple of years, we've seen the Rajon Rondo coming out party. Last year was Derrick Rose. These are a couple point guards that have been dominating, that have been having big years the last couple of years. This season, I think it's going to be either Steph Curry or John Wall that are taking their game to the next level. That good, that talented. You look at Nick Young as well. I mean, he's absolutely become a legitimate scorer in the NBA. The front court, very interesting front court out there in Washington as well. JaVale McGee, a very good season last year at 10 points, 8 rebounds, and an absolute legit shot blocker. And Andre Blatche, one of the more under-the-radar players in the league as far as I'm concerned. Blatche, a 6-year veteran now in the NBA. All 6 of his years, folks, the points, rebounds, and assists improved every single year for 6 straight years. He got it all the way up to 17 points, 8 rebounds last year. I mean, really, really nice job. Very dynamic and exciting front court. A lot of dynamic, young, exciting talent for Washington. This year, do they bear watching? No, it's going to be a year of development for them. But going forward, is there something brewing in the nation's capital? It does look like it. Last team in the Southeast to look at, probably the least team in the Southeast to look at. We'll see what Washington can do, but the Charlotte Bobcats this year for Paul Silas and Michael Jordan, they're going to be playing their version of small ball. You're looking at DJ Augustine, Corey Maggette is in, Kemba Walker, of course, will be making his debut as a rookie. Boris Diaw at about 6'8" is the center, so you see what we're saying there with small ball. Paul Silas and Jordan, they get a three-point shooter that they were looking for. They bring in Reggie Williams over from Golden State. That's a nice move there, because certainly the offense needs to be addressed in Charlotte. One player that we will have to wait, it looks like, a little bit to see going forward is Bismack Biyombo, still in a contract dispute with his Spanish team, but that certainly is something exciting going forward for this Bobcat team. You got to be excited. In this past year in the draft, you add Kemba Walker, you add Bismack Biyombo. Biyombo, by all reviews, and it certainly looks to be the next Ben Wallace that's entered the league, so potentially exciting player there going forward. Could there be some exciting things from the Bobcats? Sure, we'll take a look at those rookies, and because they're going to get a ton of playing time opportunity for Paul Silas and Michael Jordan in that squad. Do we think that they're a legitimate threat right here, right now for the 2011-2012 NBA season? No, we do not. Sports Talk with Craig Ballard. That was the NBA Southeast Division preview. Thank you again for joining me. Definitely check out the other division previews as well.